Hello, and thank you for joining us again for another video in Our World in the Limelight. And today my plan is to talk about curiosity and how a book sums that up for me from way back in my early adult, nearly adult time. It's a book called The World Atlas of Mysteries, and although it has an author, it's actually a collaboration between a number of very different minds and thoughts and ideas, and some of the stuff that is involved is pure nuttery, but some of it is absolutely fascinating, and it's just so worth exploring the idea of a book that can have history in it, geography in it, madcap ideas, conspiracy theories to a degree. It was published in 1978. I went to university in 1980, and it has a number of topics that I would look at when I had essays and put some of the thoughts to test for the essays. I don't think I had the courage to reference it in any of the references at the end of the essay, because it was just a bit too daft to do so. But it was interesting to explore the ideas because it has a range of different subject matters, and it was always very intelligently put together, which meant that it rarely took a side in a question. And that means that it was possible to get quite an interesting synthesis of ideas. So here is a page about the dinosaurs and possible reasons why they might have died out. And he addresses all the different ideas of the time, so bearing in mind that this was published in 1978, and goes carefully, gently into them, not in depth, not with heavy references. There is a very good bibliography at the end, but it's not a copious academic one, it's an intelligent one. The maps are beautifully put together and consistent throughout, with the browns and the beiges and the sepia, and that again appeals to my mind, and it explores the concepts of things like plate tectonics and the giant continental land masses of Gondwanaland and Laurasia, and how the world is moving apart and continues to move apart. So the Americas and Europe and Africa are moving further and further away from each other in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and sort of closer together, if you can call it that, in the Far East with Japan, and the Americas actually getting a bit closer. But it all being a bit of a hodgepodge in terms of how the movement is going. It's certainly not linear. One thing that I've found really interesting in the last few years is putting my grandfather's autobiography together. He worked on a film in the 1930s called The Tunnel, or the Transatlantic Tunnel, depending on which side of the Atlantic you actually were. And it was a silly science fiction film to do with the possibility of a tunnel going from America to England on the back of the Channel Tunnel that they supposed would have been built by then, having been such a success. And one of the segments in the film has the tunnellers tunnelling through a volcano, which is a slightly bizarre idea that they could ever even contemplate doing that. But the fact that the film in the 30s came up with the tunnel through the volcano in the mid-Atlantic prior to the theories of continental drift and the finding of the mid-Atlantic ridge and all the geology to go with it and geomorphology to go with it, it is, for me, adds in an extra layer to my personal world. So he goes into strange ideas about what happened with Venus, and a chap called Emanuel Velikovsky. I think he had one of his associates was quite a fan of Emanuel Velikovsky, who had some extraordinary ideas, but also raised some thoughts that could have an interest. And what I've found interesting on the back of it is just the mapping of similar ideas across the world. And a lot of this is stuff that the academic world considered at the time to be hokum. There is such a thing as academic protectionism, but it's also worth just exploring ideas rather than rejecting them. It's better to reject on the basis of them being ideas to reject rather than just rejecting them out of hand because they don't fit with what you already know. And this is where Velikovsky sort of prompted some interesting debates, and he was quite keen on Little Men from Outer Space, which takes it into odd areas. Then again, you got mapping of things like the cave paintings, and that just gives a better idea of how spread or not spread these things are. As a big mapping fan, all of these maps tie in and continue to tie in. I think by my third year I had rather stopped using this a reference, but still would dip into it, and there's strong reasons why it's the first book that I've chosen to talk about. I got fascinated by the ideas of who actually did go across to America. Was it the Irish in their coracles, or was it Columbus going to the south? And there are plenty of sailors who also explored this idea, and they've tested it, like Thor Heyerdahl in several of his ships, and to see what it was possible to achieve using primitive sailing craft. It also has a section on maps. If you do research into anything, it is so helpful to just say, I wonder if, I wonder what. Look slightly outside the box of what you expect to find, because that's where you find things that you can then come in at a different angle and see and think about things in a new way. And so, yes, there's a lot of strange things in this book, but there's also a lot of prompts for curiosity, and I'm a big fan of curiosity and of randomness. Anyway, this has been short, but it's a weekend for short. Next weekend, Simon will be doing his beginnings of going into the woodlands in more detail, where he will address the habitat side of things, and lichens will start to be shown. And his first one is all about the woodlands in Newfoundland, and there are some fantastic lichens there as well. And then after that, I'm going to do a little shorty funny about a book that addresses careers and how important having an awareness of really unusual careers might be for children to be able to decide what they want to do. And that is speaking from the start as somebody who has never really known what it was she wanted to do, apart from keep aware of anything and everything that she possibly could to do with our world in the limelight. Thank you very much for joining us, and it's lovely to have our new subscribers and all the likes. They mean a great deal. They're a big morale boost, and we will get more and more used to doing this as time goes by. Thank you.